Hi. The preceding lesson was oriented around an analysis of race. And as a way of kind of tying up maybe loose ends, I'd like for you to consider the content of this photograph. This lesson will focus on two very important concepts: ethnicity and minority status. Ethnicity is important because many of the so-called racial differences are actually a reflection of ethnicity, a shared or a common ancestry and cultural heritage. As Henslin points out, ethnic categories have a notion of belonging, which, quote unquote, may center on their nation or region of origin, distinctive foods, clothing, language, music, religion, or family names and relationships. There is, within each society and around the world, an enormous amount of ethnic diversity. Some of you might recognize this: Cajun cuisine. Furthermore, think about a subcultural group that we examined earlier, the Old Order Amish, marked by a number of ethnic elements, including dress. This young boy is part of the Dinka culture, one of several pastoralist societies that still operate in the eastern part of Africa, particularly in the area known as the Sudan. He's undergone ritual scarification, in which you'll notice 6 horizontal scars have been made in his forehead. This is part of his rite of passage. He's now no longer a boy, he is a man. Here in the United States, among the Apache, there is an interesting ritual of passage that is referred to as the sunrise dance. Following a girl's first menstrual period, she undergoes a 4-day ritual designed to prepare her for a life as an adult, a grown-up woman. During the 3rd day, she is painted with white clay mixed with corn pollen or maize pollen. And during the ceremony, she becomes Changing Woman, a very important sacred character to the Apache, one capable of healing. All of these can be thought of in the context of ethnicity. Now, minority or minority status carries with it a different meaning. Minorities are really, as you will note on page 6 in your study guide, it's a collection of people, a category of people distinguished by some physical or cultural trait or traits or differences who are set apart. That is, to imply they're held in low esteem and they are subordinated, which means they don't have any power, and they're often, again, the target of discriminatory acts. All minorities, again, are marked by the 2 characteristics that you see here. They have some kind of a distinctive identity. Now, once again, it can be physical and or cultural, but it's something that the dominants, those people in control, consider to be in low esteem. Now, these traits or disabilities will often produce a feeling of group orientation, a group awareness, if you will, or solidarity among the members. But above all, the key thing that marks minorities is subordination. They don't have, go back to our discussion earlier of stratification. They don't have meaningful prestige, status, that is to say social position, power, wealth, and income. Now you also want to bear in mind that minorities, or minority status to be precise, is usually what sociologists refer to as ascribed. In other words, one is born into a minority. And minorities in general practice what anthropologists refer to as endogamy. What that implies is that they tend to marry within their own category. Now, it's important to remember that what makes a minority is not numbers. It is, again, what the key characteristic is subordination. And this distinctive identity, I want you to remember, it can be anything. It could be skin color, it could be gender, it could be physical characteristics of one sort or the other. A physical handicap, for example. Likewise, perhaps in a situation of someone being obese. Any and all these characteristics that are held in low esteem by those in positions of power and influence can create this distinctive identity. And by the way, that distinctive identity could also reflect dress as well as behaviors of one sort or the other. Now, it's not numbers. Again, I want to emphasize that point very strongly. That makes a minority a minority. As a matter of fact, it's interesting that in many societies, minorities actually outnumber the dominants. So it isn't numbers. Again, it's that distinctive identity held in low esteem and the fact that minorities lack power, prestige, status, wealth, and other valued resources. And be cautious. Not everybody within a minority is disadvantaged. Do you recognize these two women? Women collectively can be thought of as a minority in the United States when it comes to power, prestige, and status. Things have changed a great deal since the 1970s, but there's still some important gaps. Well, these two women are anything but disadvantaged. Okay. Plus, Oprah, to the left, is also African American. So not everybody in a minority status is disadvantaged. On the other hand, bear in mind, if you will, that minorities continue, in large part because they don't have any power. Improving their condition or situation depends, at least in part, in accumulating valued resources. Additionally, as you think about this and reflect on it in some detail, another reason minorities continue is that those in control, those at the top of the heap, get something out of the existence of minorities. Minorities, for example, can supply cheap labor. They can do all the dirty work that nobody else wants to do. They might serve as a support base for election to public office. And above all, they can serve as a convenient scapegoat, somebody to blame when things go bad. Likewise, you want to remember too that a lot of people in the general population gain by the existence of minorities, particularly in a competitive society. By having people as minorities, that removes some folks from direct competition for good jobs, housing, education, and the like. And most folks tend to, more often than not, accept existing patterns, existing arrangements, and they don't see any real need for change. It's really very difficult to convince even well-intended persons that what works for them doesn't work for minorities. Furthermore, making changes can be very costly time-consuming, demanding. In short, it can hurt. Change may produce increased costs, require giving up or relinquishing some advantages. And those people who are profiting from the existing system, they're going to be very uncomfortable giving up what they consider to be real advantages. And then last but not least, ideologies play an important role in the existence of minorities. Remember what ideologies are: just sets of ideas and beliefs that justify or rationalize an existing system. In this case, they can be used to rationalize existing inequalities. And once these kick in, they're very, very difficult to change or alter. One of my favorites, as by way of illustration, and it's easy for me to say that because I'm a male, is what's referred to as the cult of domesticity, or the cult of true womanhood, a set of ideologies that emerged in the 1830s and 40s here in the United States when the economy, the overall economy, was changing. We were moving away from an agrarian base to an industrial base. More people were moving to cities, and husbands worked. And the notion developed that women were best suited for nurturing roles. They should be at home taking care of the kids and preparing for the return of their husbands from a tough work day. Now, this coincided with a kind of interesting change as to children as well. Children were no longer little adults, but the notion developed that they were innocents who had to be protected. And who was best suited for that? You got it, women. And even if you look at the jobs until recently that women were able to secure, many of them push this notion that by their very nature, women are nurturers. Do you recognize the jobs? Teaching, secretaries, nursing. So bear in mind the role, the significance, and the importance to our overall analysis of social inequality of minorities. Next time, we're going to examine discrimination, followed thereafter by an examination of prejudice.